the story didn't seem interesting to me. Okay, the Buffalo Bills hired a woman at a coaching position, full-time coach, and that's not an interesting story to me. They hired a qualified person to do a job. Surprise. That's not interesting. That's just not a fascinating thing to me. I maybe I'm alone on that one, but she's a woman. Sure, most of the employees are men. Most of the people in the NFL are men. But if she's qualified to do the job, if Rex Ryan and the Buffalo Bills organization thinks that she's qualified enough to do the job, and she was with Rex before in New York, she wasn't a full-time coach, but she did work under Rex. Surely he knows something that the rest of us don't. She's qualified to do the job. She's doing the job. And I feel like we always have to have this conversation in sports, especially when it comes to men's sports and whether or not women can coach them, even though we never seem to have this discussion in women's sports. Women's college basketball, a great number of those coaches are men. This is not a conversation. Qualified person, if you're qualified enough to do the job, do the job. Okay, but before we get any further into that, the reason why I have to talk about that story is because, of course, there's a fantastic radio host in Cleveland. His name is Kevin Kiley. Opened his mouth and said all the wrong things about this, as you knew one of us would. That's just how this all works, too. One of us was going to put our foot in the mouth. You were wondering who was going to be. Kevin Kiley. Thank you for making my life just a little bit easier. But before we get into that, I'd like to tell you about all the different places, the platforms, the avenues that you can listen to this show and all the others here on Hot News Talk Radio, AM 1240. You can tune in on your radio. You can use the TuneIn Radio app, which you can find in the Google Play Store or the Apple Store. And you can have Hot News Talk Radio on your mobile device. Just search Hot News Talk Radio in the search bar. Give us a follow and press play. You'll have Hot News Talk Radio everywhere you go. We're also streaming live on YouTube, and you can find our older episodes on YouTube. See what we look like. Interact with us. We're on Facebook, Twitter. Search Hot News Talk Radio. And you can follow me on Twitter as well, at Sports Cloud. I tweet during games. Sometimes my observations are poignant, like the last one that I had, which is that James Harrison is old. How is he doing this? That there is top-notch sports analysis. That's what you're getting. That's what you're getting. And also, I'm tooting my own horn a little bit. I think I'm kind of funny on the Twitter as well. So make sure to check us out. Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and of course, hotnewstalkradio.com. We're streaming online. Just type it in. Open up a tab, go do something else. That's what I do when I want to listen to the station at home. So the Buffalo Bills hire a qualified woman to do a job, basically. She's the quality control coach for special teams in Buffalo. And, her name is Catherine Smith. If she's qualified to do the job, she ought to be doing the job, right? Like, this really isn't a conversation that we ought to be having, except to say that it is kind of novel in sports dominated by men to have women coaching. And I think partially that's just because women get locked out of that. That's just, it's just this kind of boys club. We just assume that the people who are going to be the best coaches of men are other men. And I understand that, young men, 20, 22, 23, 24-year-old men can sometimes be disrespectful and even misogynistic. And if your idea is that you want to shield a woman from all of that, that should be her choice. That if she doesn't want to put up with that, she should choose not to work there. You don't get to make that decision for her, right? That doesn't make any sense. If there's a job where you could get your feelings hurt, if there's a job where ultimately people are not going to like you, treat you poorly, then you should be the one to decide whether or not that job is a job you're willing to work at. Somebody shouldn't decide that for you. So that argument doesn't make any sense. She's qualified enough to do the job. She should do the job, right? This seems like a no-brainer, except Mr. Kevin Kiley, sports radio host in Cleveland, Ohio, not Tennessee. Kevin Kiley thinks that the NFL is, quote, the wrong place to put a woman. And I mean, I wanted to pull the audio from this thing, and I just couldn't get it to to work on my computer, which is a 10-year-old MacBook, and it's getting up there in age and getting down there in efficiency. It's just not working at all. But basically, I have his quotes pulled up here because I sympathize with people on the radio. Being a radio host myself, I understand that sometimes you say things and it's maybe not the best way to say it. It's a little clunky. You don't word it the way that you want to word it. And then you say something stupid and then everybody's jumping down your throat. And I'm like, no, don't do that. Don't do that to those people. And not just radio people. If you write for a living, if you produce words for a living long enough in your career and you're going to write something dumb, you're going to say something dumb, it's going to happen to you. Usually, it's an accident. This was not an accident because Buddy had a whole 13-minute segment about it, went on for 13 minutes in just so much sexism, you would think that we were not in 2016. It's the year of our Lord, 2010 and 6. You can't, there's some issues you don't fall on the wrong side of them, okay? You can listen to The Herd with Colin Cowherd here on AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio, and I've heard him say this before. Colin Cowherd, aim for inclusiveness, not exclusiveness. Don't exclude people. Aim to include people. This is how you stay out of the history books, right? This is how you stay out of the history books as, you know, that one white person that's screaming at a small black child walking into a newly integrated school. If you had an inclusive mindset, you're not going to be in a history book 40 years from now when they learn about how intolerant you are. And it goes for everybody. Just be inclusive of people. Regardless of what you believe, you live on this planet with them. We all got to share the space. Be inclusive. So if a woman is working in a job, usually dominated by men, include her. I shouldn't have to say this in 2016, but apparently Cleveland sports host Mr. Kevin Kiley just made my day because he wrote this whole story for me. Like I couldn't come up with a more interesting thing to talk about. This suddenly became the most interesting thing to me because there was going to be one dummy that opened his mouth and said all of the things that you're not supposed to say about this issue. He's being exclusive, and he's going to be the guy that, 40 years from now, when we talk about the first full-time coach in the NFL, and there's more women coaching in the league, this is going to be the example of the kind of person that was against progress. Kevin Kiley is that guy. He's right now, as of this moment, he is the face of anti-progress, whether he intended to or not. He just is. That is not an opinion. That is a fact. He is the face of things not moving forward. And here's one of the things that he said. I mean, there are just quotes and quotes, but basically, his first quote was, "This is the old conversation we have had about having women vote for the Hall of Fame in football," he says. "It's absurd. I mean, do you really want your determination whether you make the Hall of Fame in football? Do you want a woman to have a vote on that who's never played the game and doesn't understand the intensity of the game?" What does that even mean? There are writers who vote for people to get into the Hall of Fame who have never played the game and never understand the intensity of the game. Sitting on your butt at home and watching the game isn't understanding the intensity of the game. Going to the game and watching it live is also not understanding the intensity of the game. There is no difference between a woman who has dedicated her life to understanding the sport and a man who's dedicated his life to understanding the sport. Like, if you understand the game, you understand the game. And if you don't, you don't. Okay? I don't want to vote for the Hall of Fame. I don't understand the game on that level. But I know there are women who do. In his own city, Mary Kay Cabot writes for the Cleveland Plain Dealer, and she's a great sports journalist if she had a vote to vote who could get into the Hall of Fame, that would make total sense to me. She's been covering football for years. She's qualified. She's more than qualified. Doesn't make any sense. Then he goes on to say, later on, when you stand next to a woman, are you bigger and stronger? This wonderful argument. Do you have the ability to impose your will physically on most people? Women don't have that. So many things wrong with that. I would go with the first rebuttal to that argument, which is A, Ronda Rousey would impose her will on lots of people. She definitely could. And B, again, most people who vote others into the Hall of Fame and a lot of coaches aren't capable of doing that. Like when at the NFL level, are you serious? There's nobody that you know that you've seen in your life this week that could impose their will on Marcus Mariota. Have you seen him? He's huge. There's nobody who's going to impose their will on J.J. Watt. J.J. Watt has had burritos bigger than those people. I mean, it's just what is the point of saying that? Like his argument is like she's not a man. She's never been physically stronger than most people she's met, so she can't coach in football. Even though football, one of the great things about the game and why I think football is so overwhelmingly popular beyond other sports is the mental side of the game. It's a chess match as much as it is physical, and it does a great job of combining the physical aspect, right, that gladiator mentality, the brutality, with the finesse of the mind. This is why we love Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning's a chess master. He understands the game on a mental level. Why would a woman not be able to understand the game on a mental level? And if you say, like, anything that you say beyond that point is going to be sexist. And he did say at one point in the discussion, okay, he says this is not discrimination against women, but it is. You're discriminating. You're saying, here are all of the things that we know about women, and this is why they're not qualified to do any job coaching in the NFL. There's no woman that can ever be qualified for that. That is discrimination. That's like the person that goes, I'm not racist, but literally stop talking. The next words out of your mouth are going to be racist. Like, it's just how that works. What you're saying with that but there is just admitting that the next words out of your mouth are racist. That you may not have a racist opinion, that you may not be a racist person overall, but that opinion that you hold is definitely racist. And what are you, if not all of the opinions that you have? Right? This is AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio, Clutch with Keon Rose, talking about Kevin Kiley and his criticism of Catherine Smith being hired as the NFL's first full-time female coach, which, again, is not a conversation that's interesting to me. She is a person qualified for a job. That's not news. You know, it isn't. And it shouldn't have been news when Jackie Robinson broke the color barrier, because that is a person qualified for a job. I understand that it's a big deal because it does show how far along we've come. But I want to treat this like this is a normal thing. A woman getting hired for a job should be normal. We shouldn't be amazed that it happened. But we have to be, because it's never happened before. But it wasn't going to be an interesting conversation. I would have talked about it a little bit. But Kevin Kiley had some things to say about this, including one where he says football is about physical advantage. Women are at a loss when it comes to the reference points of football. This is not discrimination against women. There it is. I don't care if a woman is president. That'd be great. I don't care if a woman runs a corporation. That'd be great. But don't set people up to fail. Which, again, this idea that inherently football is this manly thing that only men get to do and men get to be involved with and a part of. I don't think a woman should play football, but that's because of the physical nature of the game and that she could be seriously injured from that. Which I still think if a woman qualifies for a job in the NFL as a player, she should even be allowed to do that. It would be very difficult, but she should if she can qualify, right? I don't think you should want to, because that seems like a very brutal and painful thing. I'm 5'10", 180 pounds. I'm a guy. I want nothing to do with the NFL. Like, I never want to go there. If you have dreams in your life, and everybody's had dreams of being a professional athlete, if you're listening to this show, you have had at one point, there's a point where you're like, okay, I can't do this anymore. Like, I can't dream about this anymore. It's never going to happen for me. Football is one of the first dreams to die in the professional athlete dreams. Baseball, we've seen old people basically in baseball. Fat Bartolo Colon pitched in the National League Championship Series, right? Like, how old is he? And he is round. You could roll him to the mound to get him over there to pitch, right? So there's baseball. You're looking at baseball and you're like, nah, I can still play baseball. Like, if I just buckled down and just got the training right, I could still play baseball. Basketball is one of those sports. I'm 25. I had to lay my hoop dreams to rest this past year, but up until that moment, I felt like, I'm 5'10", but so what? Isaiah Thomas is in the league. He's 5'10". So what? Muggsy Buggs was 5'1". So what? But football dreams die first. And that's because nobody is physically capable of doing what those monsters do out there every week. Every week. You couldn't do it. That's not just a woman thing. That's most men. That's most men. Okay? That if you have a kid and he's in high school right now, there's like a 10% chance that he makes it to the NFL. Even after all of his wishing and wanting, his desire, his training, he could still never make it to the NFL. Just that's a nonsense argument that a woman would never know how to coach in the NFL, especially since she's done it before. She's coached before. She's not new to this. She didn't wake up yesterday. She understands how special teams formations work. This is how she got to be the coach. It's not a token hire. He says she couldn't possibly be qualified to the same level that a man could be qualified to do that. Why not? Kevin Kiley is a Cleveland radio host. Let me say this again. Kevin Kiley is a Cleveland radio host. He lives in Cleveland with the Browns. With the Cleveland Browns. I'm spelling this out one by one because the point here is the Browns organization is run by men. Allegedly. You could argue chimps. I would accept that as an argument. But it's allegedly run by men. It is not great what's happening in Cleveland. Since they brought that team back, since the team came back in 1999, the Cleveland Browns have been absolutely abysmal. That organization from top to bottom is run by men. The sport is played by men. And how's that working out for Cleveland? Dude, who knows? It might not even hurt to throw a woman in there and just shake things up. Add an extra brain cell or two. Because if your argument is that men are just inherently better at doing this thing, how do you explain the Cleveland Browns? How on earth do you explain the Cleveland Browns? That travesty of an organization. How do you explain that? Or Dan Gilbert, also in Cleveland, who ran LeBron James out of town. And only because LeBron wants to build a brand did LeBron actually come back. How do you explain any of that? It's not a man's world. I know that's what James Brown said, but that's not the case. This is AM 1240, Hot News Talk Radio. You're listening to Clutch with Keon Rose. I'm Keon Rose. And coming up next, we're going to talk about the AFC Championship game, the NFC Championship game, which you can catch here on AM 1240, Hot News Talk Radio. This Sunday on the radio and online at hotnewstalkradio.com.
I'm blowing everything up. We're starting over. I'm doing a new show. I want guys who push it to the middle of the table and go over the top. Take a risk, fail miserably. I'm right, and I'm not wrong, and I'll never back down. Conflict works. Allow it.
It's The Herd with Colin Cowherd. Right here and everywhere. Noon Eastern.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds. We'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
You want more business. You want to increase your bottom line. You want to spend less on advertising, imaging your business, and general expenses. You need Trade Bank. Trade Bank of Chattanooga. Trade Bank. Call now to get access to nearly 400 local businesses. Trade Bank. Call 877-2202. 877-2202. Trade Bank. You want to increase your cash flow, your competitive edge, attract new customers, and build a loyal customer base. You need Trade Bank of Chattanooga. Call right now. 877-2202. When you join Trade Bank, you'll get the benefit of free advertising in our monthly magazine, tradebank.com, emails, and mailouts. Join Trade Bank now and receive your Trade Bank debit card with trade credits to spend any way you want with our wide variety of Trade Bank partners. For almost 30 years, Trade Bank has been your voice for small business, a member of the American Bankers Association, and in good standing with you. Trade Bank of Chattanooga. Call now for a free consultation, 877-2202. That's 877-2202. Trade Bank of Chattanooga.
On your signature, you can get $150,000. Can you believe that? $150,000 on your signature. Hi, I'm Bruce Krebs with the Entrepreneur Source. There's a program right now that you can get $150,000 on your signature with no pledge of collateral or personal guarantee. Call me at 423-875-5621 to learn more. 423-875-5621. You've been thinking about starting a business and becoming self-sufficient. Don't do it on your own. I have a proven track record for the last 13 years. 96% success rate. I can guide you into a franchise where you will pay yourself through the startup phase with very low or little risk. Call me now. I'm Bruce Krebs at 423-875-5621. 875-5621. And make sure to listen to the Entrepreneur Hour every other Wednesday from 11 to 12 o'clock here at AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio. Call me now, 875-5621.
While politicians debate climate change and taking our guns, they leave America vulnerable to disaster. You need to act now to keep your family safe and prepared. Do you have an emergency plan? Do you have long-term storage food? Do you have the skills and mindset to survive a disaster? If not, what are you waiting for? Call P5 Preparedness right now, 423-602-2175. Do you honestly think the government is going to help you? If you do, you are wrong, dead wrong. Don't get caught unprepared. Let the experts at P5 Preparedness get you ready for any emergency or disaster situation. Today, we offer a wide range of classes for the beginner on how to prepare, as well as the expert prepper. We stock a wide range of supplies, including long-term storage food, water filtration, outdoor gear, tactical gear, and plate carriers. P5 Preparedness, East Brainerd Road, between I-75 and Gun Barrel Road. You will see the Army Deuce and a Half truck, 423-602-2175, 1309 Panorama Drive, Chattanooga. P5preparedness.com.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Getting very wet out there through the nighttime with more rain pushing in from the south and west. Temperatures holding steady for Friday. A very wet start with morning rain. That'll taper off, but then turning colder with some of the rain changing to light snow by late tomorrow into tomorrow night, with some accumulations likely by Saturday morning. Comedian Tim Hawkins will be at Abba's House in Hickson Sunday, January 24th at 6 p.m. Tickets available at Abba's House Bookstore and Cafe or online at abbashouse.com/Tim Hawkins. And I'm Soarzine 12 Chief Meteorologist Patrick Hoare.
On AM 1240, Hot News Talk Radio.
When the weather turns bad, turn to AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio. On the net, hotnewstalkradio.com. Follow us on Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook. From the Hot News Talk Radio Weather Center. Chattanooga, we've got you covered. When the weather turns bad, the Tennessee Valley turns to Hot News Talk Radio.
Go, 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 go.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
I got to get somebody on here to help me talk about the Chattanooga Mocs. Having another great basketball season. Boy, lost Will Wade. We haven't missed a beat. 16-3 this season. And Chattanooga, a few days ago, beat Eastern Tennessee State 94-84. McLean scoring a career high of 29 points. And I haven't talked too much about him so far this season, and I'll try and get a special guest on here to talk about the Mocs. I'm excited about what's in the works here. Okay, I'm thrilled. We've got some great new guests coming around the corner. I'm excited. But yeah, we're gonna get to talk some more Mocs basketball. But I just had to mention that they're 16-3. By the way, they're really, really good, and more entertaining to watch than the Volunteers right now. Even though I like Rick Barnes. I do. I like him. I don't think that he's good in the tournament, but I think regular season Rick Barnes is usually pretty good, and I'd like to give him some more time and see where he's going to be able to take this team after he gets to recruit. That's his strong suit. His strength is getting the talent on the team. He's really good at that part. Rick Barnes can recruit anybody. Rick Barnes convinced Kevin Durant, who lived and grew up in Prince George's County, Maryland, to come to Texas. He convinced Kevin Durant to go to the University of Texas. Kevin Durant, I lived in Prince George's County. That is Terps country, man. University of Maryland. And if you don't like the Terps, then the Georgetown Hoyas. You're either a Hoya or a Terp. People who play basketball in that state do not leave very often. And Kevin Durant's arguably the best talent that's ever come out of there. Like, what he's doing right now is ridiculous. Rick Barnes convinced Kevin Durant to leave Terp country to go to play in Texas. Like, when I read that, I was like, was there an NCAA violation around here? Because I don't know how you do that legally. He's just a fantastic recruiter. He's just an amazing recruiter. So trust me, the talent is going to eventually get on the floor for Tennessee. The only issue is, can Rick Barnes coach that talent to anything further than a second-round exit in the tournament? I don't know if he can. I've seen it a couple of times in my whole life. So we'll see. He's at least good for Tennessee in terms of making this school relevant again. And I know that this season, and I'm watching it, and I am playing a little bit of homer here because I am watching Tennessee basketball and going, I see the potential here. It could just be a little bit better. Just have to get deeper, which he is good for. So Vols fans, basketball Vols fans, hang in there because it's coming. This is AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio, Clutch with Keon Rose. As you well know, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, search Hot News Talk Radio. Check us out. If you don't have the TuneIn Radio app and you want to hear us on your mobile device, search the TuneIn Radio app in the Google Play Store or the Apple Store, where apps can be found, and boom, you've got Hot News Talk Radio everywhere you go. We feature Binary App Show with our news director, Russell Stroud. The Herd with Colin Cowherd for your national sports. I here bring it more local to just whatever it is that you want to talk about. Our call-in line is 800-8949. Love to hear from you. I interact with everybody on every platform. You don't know. I sit down and go through the Facebook page and see who comments. And, if you have a question, if you just have a rant, I'll respond to your rant. Bama fans know what's up. They have to sit here and listen to Colin Cowherd basically insult their team for an entire call. And Colin was talking about Alabama's dead. They look like a slow Big Ten team. Just stuff, man. Just gas bagging, okay? Like, this is what we do in this industry, is we just make bold statements and then hope that they come true. That's sports radio in a nutshell. We say really loud, bold things and hope that they come true, or we react on things that already happened loudly and boldly. That's the job. Can't be afraid to be wrong. And Colin was very wrong. An Alabama fan had no problem letting him know that. You want to leave that on our Facebook page? That's cool. Love to hear from you. Love to hear from you. So we've got a couple of games coming up this weekend. Interested in, just the AFC Championship game and the NFC Championship game. And those games they've got some interesting storylines to them, right? In the NFC, you've got the first time two Heisman winning quarterbacks have ever met in the playoffs, which is a stat that I ran out on Monday. I couldn't believe this is the first time. Carson Palmer, Heisman Trophy winner. Cam Newton, Heisman Trophy winner. Going head-to-head. Well, sort of head-to-head. You know how it is in football. We put the quarterbacks head-to-head even though they're not on the field at the same time and don't actually play against one another. That's just how it goes. But I think that this is the closest that we're going to get to a head-to-head matchup. Cardinals, very good, very strong physical defense. Panthers, very good, very strong physical defense. So what we're going to see is two good quarterbacks going up against two good defenses and their different play styles. Carson Palmer, obviously, a more traditional drop-back passer. Arizona Cardinals love the deep ball. They have a number of deep threats all over the field. And Cam Newton, who also loves the deep ball, but he's not as accurate as Carson is. He doesn't have nearly as many weapons because they all got injured before the season started, and he's basically been scraping together just the group of guys that they have. And they've gone on an unbelievable run. They were undefeated for most of the season. I think that loss that they took did them a lot of good. Gets the pressure off your back. Nobody wants to have the pressure of going 19-0. I think the only team that could handle that was the Patriots, and they weren't able to actually do it. You just got to get that pressure off of you. They already did it. They got their loss. Now they're dialed in and they're focused. They've got the best defense left in the postseason. They've got the most dynamic quarterback left in the postseason, and I never thought I'd say that, but they do. Cam Newton, in my opinion, is the best quarterback left in the postseason because of what he can do to your team. Okay, Peyton Manning is a shell of his former self, and you can see it. Howard Cosell, earlier this morning on The Herd with Colin Cowherd, was talking about how Peyton Manning actually made a brilliant read, but he overthrew Demarius. And Peyton Manning was able to check into a pass. He just missed the target. Peyton Manning's arm strength and arm accuracy, not what it used to be. Not what it used to be. And I like to call Peyton Manning the chess master. I like to call him the chess master. But what his mind is capable of and what his body is capable of, Peyton Manning's not playing chess anymore. He's playing checkers. Right? He's playing checkers. He's not playing a game that requires you to see a few moves ahead because he can't do physically what his mind is telling him to do. The throws aren't there. Peyton Manning can't make sideline throws anymore. He can't do it. It requires a lot of accuracy, and he ain't got it. It's gone. Okay? Tom Brady. Tom Brady's still playing at an elite level. Okay? But he's got receivers that are coming back from injury. They're still working in, trying to get the rhythm going. So, if he doesn't suffer too many drops, and they had some drops last game as well. Tom Brady, amazing quarterback. But the way that the Patriots offensive line looks right now, it's in Tom Brady, when he doesn't look quite as terrific. All right, he just doesn't. And Carson Palmer, he's probably, Carson Palmer is an MVP candidate this season as well. And it's amazing that we have 3 out of the 4 basically MVP candidate quarterbacks left in the postseason. That seems about right. You need a great quarterback to win in this league. But the person who ought to win the MVP, Cam Newton, Cam ought to win. This is AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio, Clutch with Keon Rose, breaking down the NFC Championship game, I think Cam Newton is the best quarterback left in the playoffs. Is Cam the most accurate guy left? No. Is Cam throwing the ball down the field with ease? Not like Carson. Is he the most accurate guy left? No, that's Tom. Is he the smartest guy left? Nah, that's Peyton. But what Cam Newton does on the football field will have your defense all messed up. Will have your defense all messed up. Cam Newton is one pass short of the most passing touchdowns thrown this regular season. And he is one rush short of the most rushing touchdowns rushed this regular season. What that tells you is that Cam Newton is accounting for a metric crap ton of touchdowns. You've got to figure out how you're going to stop this guy. And then on top of that, he's so big and strong and fast and athletic. How do you do that? Like, honestly, how do you tackle a guy that's moving that quick, that's that big and that strong? He's Ben Roethlisberger, but he's fast. That's crazy. That's crazy to me. And then on top of that, he plays the mental game very well. He's not the smartest guy left, but he's very smart. He manipulates defenses. He's matured into that kind of quarterback. He can stay in the pocket and make those throws. So I think Cam's the best quarterback left at this moment. If the Patriots had a better O-line, obviously I'd go with Brady. But at this moment, Cam's the best guy left. And for that reason, I think that the Panthers are going to beat the Cardinals. It's going to be a close game, and the Cardinals are no slouches either. And again, I'm interested in seeing what the Panthers do to slow the Cardinals' aerial attack. I think the Packers gave a very good blueprint a week ago as to how to do that in terms of covering all of their receivers and press coverage, making those guys fight. And I think that the personnel and the size of the Panthers, they're actually capable of doing that. You're not going to stop it all the time, okay? Carson is throwing the ball downfield with a level of accuracy that doesn't even make sense right now. He's throwing it downfield, and he's very accurate, and it opens up a lot. It even opens up their rushing attack because you can't send extra men. Carson Palmer sees a one-on-one matchup, he's going to pick it, and he's not throwing interceptions. So it's going to be a tough game. It's going to be a close game. I think the Panthers will take it because Cam. He's too good. He's too good. And in the AFC Championship game, this one's tougher because I don't know what to think about this game. I think it looks like a no-brainer at first, like it looks really obvious. Oh, yeah, obviously you go with the Patriots, right? Like, obviously, Tom Brady, the Patriots, Peyton Manning looks old, but you're not looking at the same Patriots team, and you're not looking at the same Broncos team from even one season ago. You know, you've got Gronk. You give Brady Gronk, you've definitely got an advantage on that side, right? You give any quarterback Gronkowski, you've got an advantage on that side. But what I really think is interesting about this particular matchup is Denver is a great defensive team. A great defensive team. And Peyton Manning isn't asked to go out there and win a ton of games. He's just out there to manage the game, manage the flow of the game. Peyton's not making any mistakes. He's not making big plays, for sure. The last game that they played, the Broncos, where they ended up beating Pittsburgh, that's the first game that Peyton Manning's played in the postseason where he didn't throw a touchdown or an interception. So Peyton's just managing the game. If the Broncos get on the goal line, they're running it. They would rather hand it off to C.J. Anderson 4 times than let Peyton Manning throw it once. So that's the kind of team that they've become. That's the kind of team that they are. And honestly, that's the kind of team that they're going to need to stick to their identity to beat the Patriots. And I think that it's going to be close, but I think the Broncos will beat the Patriots. And I only say that because of the Patriots' offensive line. Like, at one point this season, they had a tight end playing right tackle. You can't have that, okay? We talk about having a great quarterback as a key to winning in this league, but you can't have a great quarterback that gets hit a ton. When the Patriots' offensive line was at its worst point this season, that's when they started losing. It had nothing to do with the receivers. I think when you've got Tom Brady, you can mix and match receivers. I don't even care what, I mean, you could throw me out there and I'll catch some passes. It's Tom, man. But their running game really got hurt, and their offensive line just took a pounding, and none of those guys that are left are great. And I think that this opportunity for them to just heal, I think they're going to appreciate that, obviously, the bye week that they had 2 weeks ago. But to me, from when I watched them, okay, they still look shaky to me. Yes, I understand they thumped the Chiefs. But in fairness, the Chiefs' defense, not great at defending the middle of the field. And Brady's got Gronk. And the Chiefs' offense, not afraid of those guys. They don't throw to the receivers. Like they had their record for the longest amount of time that a team ever had in winning games without throwing a touchdown pass to a wide receiver. To me, that's not a team you can count on to win anything. So yeah, them beating up the Chiefs, that doesn't say a lot to me, but I will say that the Chiefs were able to get in Brady's face. Brady just had this wonderful outlet pass called Rob Gronkowski and continued to do what he does. But the Broncos are much better at defending the middle of the field. It's much better. So there's no reason. This is AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio. You're listening to Clutch with Keon Rose. I'm Keon Rose. Thank you so much for joining me today, giving me a little bit of your time so we can just talk about sports. So here's the thing. The AFC Championship game, the NFC Championship game, those are my picks. I picked the Broncos to beat the Patriots because I'm a contrarian and a hipster, and I picked the Panthers to beat the Cardinals because Cam Newton is a really good reason to pick a team to win. And you can hear those games here on Hot News Talk Radio. That's the thing that I need you to understand and know. This weekend, don't even change your dial. I know that some people like to listen on one station during the weekdays and then the programming changes on the weekend and they change somewhere else. Stay right here and listen to the games here. HotNewsTalkRadio.com is another great place to listen to the games. If you're out in your car, tune into AM 1240. If you're walking around the mall, right, your girlfriend's got you in the mall, your wife's got you in the mall, you can get it on your app, your TuneIn Radio app. Search it in the Apple Store or the Google Play Store, and you can search Hot News Talk Radio, give us a follow, press play, and you'll have Hot News Talk Radio everywhere you go. You have no excuses. Also, we're the home of Super Bowl 50 in Chattanooga. How cool is that? There's no reason. No reason. We run Yahoo Sports. Look, no reason. You understand? The amount of excuses that you have are nil at this point as to why you shouldn't be listening to those games right here. And I'm going to reset a point that I talked about earlier in the show. Excuse me. I have to reset this point because there is Samantha Smith, or Karen Smith rather. She got hired as the special teams quality control coach for the Buffalo Bills. And this is not a big deal to me. It is and it isn't. It is a big deal because, yes, progress. We finally hired a woman in a coaching position in the NFL. It's not a big deal to me because, I mean, if she's qualified for the job, why shouldn't she have it? Like, why is this a big deal? So those are my two sides of that. So I really wasn't going to talk about it because I really wasn't all that interested. It's like, okay, I might mention it as a blurb. You know, we had the first female referee hired in the NFL last season. From what I understand, and this is how I understand this, From what I understand, she's doing a pretty good job because I haven't heard anything about her. That is how I like my referees. Invisible. If I know your name, you're either Ed Hockley or bad at your job. Ed Hockley's got massive biceps. There's no way you could not know Ed Hockley. But everybody else, I don't want to know your name. This is every sport, by the way. NBA, MLB, NFL, you're a referee. I don't want to know who you are. If I know your name, you done messed up. I'm not interested in knowing who you are. That's why in the NBA, cannot stand. I know a lot of referees in the NBA. Okay, Joey Crawford's retiring at the end of this season, but Joey Crawford was one of those guys that, like, everybody knows who Joey Crawford is. That's a problem. Tony Brothers is another guy. Like, everybody knows who Tony Brothers is. That's a problem. Like, if you're watching a game that's refereed by Tony Brothers, you know before you even watch the game, there's going to be a lot of free throws. You see his angry mustache show up, and you're just like, oh, man, it's Tony Brothers. I haven't heard anything about this. The ref that the NFL hired, the female ref, good for her. I haven't heard anything about her. That's fantastic. I don't want to know anything about my referees. Not one thing. I don't even want to know your name. Ref the game, get paid, go home. Not interested. So I'm glad that I don't know who she is. But this coach that the Bills hired, Catherine Smith, the quality control special teams coach, and her job is basically watching the film, making sure that guys are doing the right things in special teams, that their form is correct, that the formations are correct and make sense. That's her job. Okay, there's no reason why a woman can't do that job. It's a sit down on your butt and watch video job. Do you understand the tactics of this game? Fine. But Mr. Kevin Kiley, radio host in Cleveland, just opened up his mouth and sexism fell out. And I now have to talk about this story. And I could not be more thrilled. I couldn't be more thrilled. His main point was that women are not usually in situations where they are more physically imposing and therefore do not understand as well as any man could what it is like to be physically imposing and therefore shouldn't be coaching. Even though, as I mentioned before, with Peyton Manning, there's a huge mental aspect to this game that, okay, taking away the physicality. But it's not like she's on the field as a running backs coach, where I think, the qualification of that should be you were a running back once. So that eliminates even every other man. But also, if men are so great, why do the Cleveland Browns stink? That organization's run by a bunch of men. I say hire a bunch of women to run the Cleveland Browns. It couldn't hurt. They literally could not do any worse than what's happening there now. Go ahead and find Johnny Manziel. Why not? This has been AM 1240, Hot News Talk Radio, Clutch with Keon Rose. Thank you for joining me, and I'll see you all next week.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Compass Media Network's coverage of the NFL. Hi, this is Jerry Recco. Join Kevin Ray, Danny White, and myself for all the action.
Hot News Talk 1240.
If it's the NFL, it's right here.
You give us 12 minutes and